y'all, welcome back to the show. You know who it is. It's your boy Jay Henahan, and I'm back with another episode of How to Kill a Sacred Cow. Tonight on the podcast we have, returning once again, Konspiracy Kyle. So, Kyle has, just a couple of months ago, released a new book called Intergalactic Totalitarianism, and if you know anything about Kyle, you know it's all about Star Wars. This book centers around specifically the prequels, the prequel trilogy, and the Clone Wars animated series that aired on Cartoon Network some years back. I know I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but you know, hopefully everyone out there is familiar with the series. So the whole drive behind this book is that there are lessons that you can learn from Star Wars, from George Lucas, and because of how knowledgeable George Lucas is of history and the way that he wove that into his series, because, you know, you've heard that trope that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Well, he inserts aspects of the Roman Empire, of course, which I love, and modern history in that as well. And the prequel movies actually elucidate as far as the looking at history through the conspiracy lens goes. And so doing those three movies in particular, Kyle was right in his wheelhouse. Kyle has an incredible show called Conspiracy in the Force. If you haven't listened to it, you should. What the hell is wrong with you? So that'll also be in the show notes. But Intergalactic Totalitarianism will be in the show notes as well. Make sure you go and buy that book, or you go and buy the audiobook. The audiobook is my favorite audiobook of 2022. And we talk about it at length in the episode, but you know, the short version is that it is very entertaining. It also is it teaches a lot of great lessons. It gives you a great template from which to look at history and current events with, and just overall, it was extremely well done. You got the foreword by Charlie Robinson in there. It's a quick read. I love it. You're going to love it. And yeah, I can't wait to show you guys this interview. If anybody wants to help out the show, you can go to howtokillasacredcow.com. Of course, we have the PayPal donation button. We have the donate cryptocurrency button. You can also get a subscription to Audible, through which your first book, which would be free with your subscription to Audible, you can download Intergalactic Totalitarianism. Now, without any further ado, Konspiracy Kyle. All right, Konspiracy Kyle, thanks a hell of a lot for coming on the program once again, man. How you doing?
I am doing great, Jay. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I wanted to congratulate you on your brand new book, Intergalactic Totalitarianism. I can see it right there in the background.
Yes. I conveniently just have it right here, you know? So yeah, it's thank you. I appreciate it a lot. You gave me a lot of really good comments on it, so it's really much appreciated, man.
Yeah, and I mean, as good as the book was, and it was fantastic, the audiobook, dude, the audiobook is where it is at. If nobody has downloaded the audiobook, you can find it on Audible. Fantastic. It's kind of like, it's a mixture between your podcast and one of those 20s, 30s, 40s old radio broadcasts kind of feel. It's got music, it's got a little bit of sound effects, and I can't speak highly enough of it because it's entertaining. It's short, but it's punchy. You know, it's not like it doesn't feel too short, and it definitely doesn't feel too long. And yeah, man, I love it. I love the fucking audiobook.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, what I wanted to do was, I think there's 30 some chapters. I basically, the chapters aren't very long, so really, it's basically just broken up into 30 some 3 to 4 minute segments, right? So I kind of treated each of those chapters just like as its own song, right? So I kind of I put all the music together myself in GarageBand and just created these little clips that I thought worked with it tonally, for that section. I tried not to overdo it, right? Because sometimes if you've listened to stuff that has like a lot of blasting music back, it's really it's frustrating to kind of block that out to hear what they're saying. So I tried to keep it as minimalist as possible, but also conveyed a little bit of message, gave you a little bit of that ambiance, like you said, because I've heard myself on recordings, and I'm my voice, I know from my own personal statement, it's not, I don't love it. So I wanted to add, I think we all say that, right? Like you hear yourself or you see yourself on video, you're like, this is garbage.
No,
So
I say this all the time on the show. I love my voice, so I might be unique in that respect. Actually, this brings me to something I wanted to bring up. You tweeted something out. You asked your wife if she had listened to the audiobook yet. What did she say?
She said she couldn't stand hearing my voice for that long. And like, I think I got a lot of good comments on it. Some of them was like, man, like my wife loves my voice. The other one was like, well, it must be true love if she's just, giving you the grief for it. So, hey, it's not her cup of tea, but I think she's probably heard me talk about the premise of all of it a zillion times already. So she's probably already heard it, just not in kind of the finished format, but maybe she wasn't listening then either. I don't know. We all, as spouses, tune out a lot. So I know I tune out a lot of what she says. She probably tunes out some of the stuff I say, but yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I wasn't really surprised.
Yeah. I get a lot of feedback from my girlfriend on the podcast, and she actually like listens to a lot of the episodes. And I sometimes ask her, I'm like, how do you do that? How can you actually? But it's tough sometimes too, because I'll be like, oh man, I'm really proud of this episode. You got to listen to it. She's like, yeah, I'll get there. I'll get there. But she's actually been really good with honest criticism of the show. Made me realize that I shoot from the hip, dude. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Sometimes the shit that I'm saying, it's just how I feel. She's like, you need some evidence to back up that claim. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll find it. I know I read it sometime in like 2016. I'll find the book. I'll find the quote, you know?
Yeah, my wife, she has given me, some feedback just in general. She's like, just, because as we all know, like you said, researching a lot of stuff we talk about in the conspiracy world and everything crazy and terrible and disgusting that goes on in our world, some of it can be very overwhelming. And she kind of cautioned me. She's like, just sometimes you need to just break away from it, and I think that's really good advice in general for anything. I think sometimes you can go too much into the dark side, pun intended. And you don't realize how much great stuff there is in this world, right? Like, your family, like your girlfriend, your kids, your home where you live, your family, nature, for me, God, and, in what I believe, spiritually. So there is a lot of good to balance out some of that bad. It's important, obviously, to bring up all the crazy things going on, because we need to spread the word as much as possible so people can fight and push back against this stuff. But, she definitely was like, saw me sometimes just getting like visually or just overtaken by some of this stuff, right? Because it can affect your entire mood. It can affect your entire day. And now you're treating people bad that are the ones that have been supporting you the whole time, and it's kind of a hard place to be. So it's you know how it is. It's like you want to understand all this stuff at the same time. Like, man, you sometimes wish you didn't take the full pill, right? Just give me like a 3/4, but it doesn't work that way. Once you see how the sausage is made, you can't go back. But I think it's just good sometimes to take things in moderation. And, every rabbit hole, is it worth pursuing? I don't know. I think a lot of them are, some of them I think are just, red herrings, where you go down this whole rabbit trail trying to figure out something and you don't really get to the bottom of it, or it's just a psyop or something like that. So it's definitely, caution everybody out there. Some things are important to research. Some things, you can kind of pump the brakes a little bit and make sure you're living your actual life too.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of this stuff it gets templatey, right? Like when you're talking about psyops and for example, one of the episodes I did the other day was on the Brooklyn shooting in the subway. And immediately I'm sitting there at my computer, my coworker's next to me, and I'm like, oh, fake. This is fake. I'm like, look at this thing, look at that thing. And he's just like, how this just happened. How the hell can you already come to that conclusion? And I'm like, well, they're running this template. You know what I'm saying? It's here's X, Y, and Z, and this doesn't make sense right out of the gate. And I feel like a lot of us get stuck in that not trap, but sometimes you're trying to convey to somebody that something's fake, and they're not really like connecting with you because you've already seen the play, you've already seen the game, you've already seen the movie, and you know the template. And so sometimes you apply that retroactively even. So let's say you get into a discussion with somebody about whatever, this or that aspect of history, and they ask you to start backing up your claims, and you're like, well, okay, you have to understand it's a template. So like, yeah, if I go to my computer and right now, if you'll drive to my house with me, I'll be able to prove a good amount of this, or I read this or that book, but it's the template, and that gets hard to convey to some people. But something that I really loved about your book was that you're using something that culturally everybody in the world knows, or at least most people. And you've got these stories that itself reflects history, because George Lucas he's really no slouch. He knows his history. And it's a great way to enter enter into a discussion about false flags and raw power and geopolitics, because you've got something that George Lucas. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. George Lucas, he's showing you the patterns of history. And so let's take false flags, for example. What's a great example in your book where you're showing a false flag in the Star Wars universe and you're applying it to something that you've seen here in the real world?
Yeah, definitely. And real quick, to kind of piggyback on your point about, the whole subway thing is, one of the things I do talk about the book is some of the false flags in terms of like, mass shooting events and things like that. And, some of those are real dicey topics, because when you say, like you said, your coworker, it's fake. It's like, well, people don't realize that the event can be fake and real people are still being affected by it, in some way, shape or form. A lot of these false flags, obviously people get injured, people die, all this stuff. But the whole point of it is it's a manufactured event. That I think that's kind of the part that's hard to get through people's heads, right? Is that this was somewhat loosely orchestrated for a specific purpose. And the one thing I talk about in the book is a lot of these end up having to do with gun control, right? Because we've already seen in the lead up to this a lot of gun control legislation about this and about that. So this is kind of like one of those things where, is it a catalyst for more legislation? I'm sure it always is. Obviously, thoughts and prayers of people who were actually affected, but at the same time, it's important to. And the other thing I think a lot of normal people say is like, well, you're messing with the memory of the people who were affected by this by saying it's fake, or it's like, well, no, I think it's the complete opposite, right? Because you're trying to, if people were truly nobody died in the subway shooting, right?
Nope.
I think just all injured. But like events where people have died, I mean, I think it's a disgrace to their memory to continue to tell lies about how they died. I think it's important to really dig up the truth about what really happened. I mean, if that was my mom or dad or brother in like one of those mass shootings, I would want to know everything about what happened, not just what I was told. But, to your question about the false flags in Star Wars, the biggest one that kind of catapulted the Empire into being was a pretty direct parallel, in my opinion, to January 6th. So at the end of Revenge of the Sith, I think everybody, and for those who don't know, my book mostly focuses on like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, because it really does, like you mentioned about templates earlier. Each of these books has a template where Palpatine, who becomes the Emperor, he gains a little bit more power, and then ultimate power. So he does this, control scheme in each of the movies. But his final one he kicks off is, the Jedi and everybody are finally figuring out like he's the Chancellor of the Republic. And they're like, he's also this Dark Lord controlling the opposition, right? So he has unlimited control, and they want to go stop him. Okay, so they go to his office and say, listen, we know what's going on. The jig is up, basically. And, some stuff that I found in the actual, like the novelization of the Revenge of the Sith episode 3 that you don't really see in the movie is that when the Jedi come in to confront him, he has it basically recording. Like he has an audio recording of this whole confrontation, right? And after it's all said and done, he kills all those Jedi, right? But he alters that footage or that audio tape, and then he goes and plays it for the Galactic Senate, and it's like, listen, the Jedi tried to kill me. We need to wipe them all out. And also, it's important to change how our government fundamentally functions so we can have more safeguards for this. And he's like, I think we should just elect somebody for life. And, that should be me. Right. So, but it kind of goes back to January 6th. I mean, I don't even think I wrote this in the book, but, there's like so much missing footage of what actually went down that day. Right. Conveniently, that may tell a different story than the actual narrative was. So what Palpatine did, manipulating the emotions of the Senate and the galaxy, is exactly what our government and media and CIA and FBI did on that day to turn the narrative from a peaceful protest, to use their terminology, to like a violent riot where terrible things were happening, and that was probably only a very small percentage of what was, of all the millions of people that were there. So I think that's a perfect parallel. And, it definitely in Star Wars, it kicked off a whole set of totalitarianism that people cheered for, right? They cheered for that. And you saw just after January 6th, same kind of thing. People said, well, we need to go. The FBI's like, we need to round these people up. We need to find them wherever they are. No different than Palpatine said, we need to root out these Jedi wherever they are, anywhere. So we're going to label these people domestic terrorists because they were walking through the Senate holding like Nancy Pelosi's laptop or something, right? Something like silly. So it's I think that is a very, very perfect parallel to false flag. Now, mind you, I think I'm kind of, the one thing about January 6th that, and I'm sure we've all belabored this point a million times, but, I used to be a pretty big Trump supporter, not so much anymore because I just don't think he really ended up doing a lot of the things he said he was going to do. I mean, I think obviously the country would probably be better under him right now. But, what was his culpability in all of that? Was he just leading all these people into a trap? And that's kind of another piece of it as well, that after this whole event happened where they were rooting out the Jedi, Anakin, who would become Darth Vader, he went to the Jedi temple where they all were and killed as many people as he found, right? But then he also set off this beacon, which it was basically like a system that alerted all Jedi, hey, come back to the temple. Things are bad in the universe. You guys all need to come back here and it's okay. So what Anakin was doing was luring them all into a trap. Any Jedi that show up there, they'd just get killed immediately. So my conspiracy that I really don't know the answer to of what his culpability is, was he kind of complicit in bringing these people there to have them labeled as domestic terrorists to get some kind of deal or something like that, right? Because, I mean, I don't know how harsh the media has really been on him since he's been out. I mean, he's still in the news a little bit, but I feel like the media has calmed down a little bit on him. So was there some kind of deal? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to even tell what the truth is in that, but yeah, definitely a lot of parallels between the end of that movie and kind of what happened on that day.
I have made the point a lot on my podcast that he very well could be controlled opposition, and that would be like high level controlled opposition. That's meta false flag, meta conspiracy type stuff. And you didn't mention that in your book, right? That's something you said.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I wish I would have, because it's a
that's
point.
A good point.
That especially about the Anakin thing, that some of these stuff you don't really see in the movie, but like it's a very interesting parallel. To lure people there under false pretenses, and when you get there, it's anything but.
Yeah. To be honest with you, Kyle, though, I'm a little disappointed in you. You missed a golden opportunity to say it's a trap. Golden opportunity. What's up with that, bro?
Well, it's like with, have you've seen this movie Spaceballs, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We'll have to do, Intergalactic Totalitarianism 2, the search for more money to bring in the Admiral Akbar. I'm sure there's more to it. I'm obviously kidding, of course, but yeah. There needs to be it's a trap. So if I write a book in the future, it's going to be all over the place. Maybe it should be called It's a Trap. Yeah. I think that's what we'll do.
So have you run into anything? Because of course now Star Wars has been taken over by Disney. This is kind of like an author, kind of a behind the scenes kind of question. Did you run into anything while in the course of publishing the book with copyright infringement or any kind of trouble like that?
No, not really. I will tell you, we talked a little bit earlier about the music that I put into it. Some of the little phrases and melodies I created for it, I tried to make them as similar to some of the themes from the movies, but just slightly off, just to kind of avoid that stuff. Because, right, I'm sure that Disney, wouldn't like somebody using these kind of parallels. That's kind of against, the government. They're kind of left-wing buddies or what have you. But no, I mean, the only thing I've gotten was, I had last summer, I think I'd been working on a kind of presentation about the kind of loose outline of this book, about how it kind of unfolded in the prequels. And I put a video out there on YouTube, which contained like some video clips from the movies and stuff that I got from YouTube, video clips that were already on YouTube that I kind of pieced together and kind of made this short little thing. And, Disney had me take that down because they said it was copyright infringement from stuff that was already on YouTube. So like, okay, they really don't like this kind of concept that I'm going towards. So no, not really. I did get a little bit of pushback when I was trying to like advertise it on Instagram and places like that. Initially, they would say like, no, this goes against our advertising policy because it's promoting politics or something. It's like, no, it's talking about Star Wars. It's talking about Star Wars and politics, right? It's not like I'm, campaigning or have some crazy ideas about something. So I kind of had to appeal to Instagram a few times to allow me to, advertise the book on there because they thought it was, something that it wasn't. And, the funny thing is that on Amazon, you have to select, 2 categories to have your book published in. And I was trying to find one that would fit because it kind of, it could fit in a few different places, like philosophy or politics or other things. So I put it in like sci-fi, of course, because it needs to go in there. But then I put it in, they have a subsection called totalitarianism/fascism. So like for the first week or so, like it was like trending on Amazon, like number 1 in fascism. And I had to like make the disclaimer, like, no, I just want to be clear about this, that it's kind of against that kind of fascist totalitarianism mindset. But it looks kind of funny when I took the screenshot of it. It just says number 1 in fascism. I'm like, oh boy. I don't know if that's kind of the promotion I wanted for it, but it ended up working out. But yeah, to your question, no, not so much pushback yet. We'll see what happens. I do make like a in the physical copy, in the Kindle version, the first page, I do kind of have a little disclaimer saying, I'm just kind of using these characters and things for commentary and research purposes and things like that, and so that it's not affiliated with Lucasfilm or in any way, shape, or form. So I hope it's okay. I hope it kind of is just kind of a slides under the radar, that it doesn't really end up on somebody's desk. But we'll see what happens.
It's pretty interesting, right? The algorithmic tripwires that they set, because you can like you use clips off of YouTube and it was fine over here, but it's not fine over here. So it really makes you wonder. I mean, the AI is always getting better, but it makes you really think about. It's like, okay, it's okay to use this copyrighted material in this context, but you cannot use it in this type of a context, and even like. It would even have to go a couple of levels deeper in terms of the AI being able to recognize what is going on, because it has to be able to take the content in context. So maybe it would be fine with you using those clips as long as you could keep it political, but maybe if it was promoting more of the woke ideology, I guarantee you it wouldn't have been taken. Well, I shouldn't say guarantee, but there's a good chance it wouldn't have been taken down. However, you put it in the context of conspiracy. That's another though. So that's a really good case in point of the way where these algorithms are going in terms of AI. Like with me, I had my original YouTube channel taken down because I was talking about elite pedophilia, and they took it. Epstein, the Franklin scandal. I had Philip Fairbanks on talking about his book Pedogate Primer. And that was my second strike. The first strike, they only gave me 2 strikes. The first one was an Epstein episode in 2019. The second one was that one, the Pedogate Primer, because I was a repeat offender, right? and which is that also has a special type of irony,
Yes.
and they'd called it bullying and harassment, and I'm like, okay, so YouTube likes pedophiles, okay, weird, whatever. So I guess we could use this subject to transition into something. Is there any type of any type of grooming that you might see going on in the Star Wars universe now that Disney has taken over? Anything like that?
You know, they've definitely pushed, you know, a big feminist agenda, and they've definitely pushed same sex type stuff. And obviously everybody knows, you know, Disney made that huge announcement a few weeks ago about how they're trying to put more, you know, same sex, trans, whatever content into all their stuff, which, you know, is like, okay, like I think we all know Disney is corrupt and has all these issues and narratives that they're trying to push out, you know, but it's like new for a lot of people. They never really realized how bad that kind of stuff was. So within Star Wars, not necessarily that I've seen so far. The one thing that I do kind of like that I think keeps the Star Wars property somewhat pure is that there's like very little like sex in Star Wars, you know, and I think that's kind of a good thing, to be honest. Obviously, it's a part of life, right? But you know, in Star Wars, just think about any of the movies. Like, there's really no place where it like would have fit in. I mean, I think there's like, you know, the Anakin and Padme stuff. Okay, you know, Han and Leia. Okay, just little things. But it just makes you like it doesn't show you like the full thing. Obviously, like something was happening in those scenes or whatever, but it doesn't like give you the full visual, right? You kind of just have to interpret it for yourself. Um, not yet. I'm sure they push a lot of stuff to, you know, young kids, you know, Star Wars related content on YouTube and other places that I haven't really checked out. But I'm sure, you know, there's going to be a lot of, you know, trans or whatever type issues coming in. I mean, even, you know, in the last movie they made, there was, you know, something that I was actually just thinking about today. I wouldn't necessarily consider grooming, but just kind of like a narrative they were trying to push. There were two kisses in the final movie of the sequel trilogy. So there was Kylo Ren kissed Rey, and then he died, right? So like when if you're a woman and you kiss a toxic male, you know, he needs to die immediately. He's dead. And then there was like a same sex lesbian kiss, and they were fine. They went off into the world, but it was like unnecessary. That was like one of the last scenes, like one of the last visuals you see in the movie between two minor characters that nobody even knew what their names were. But it's like they felt like they had to put that in there, you know. But yeah, there hasn't been too much of that kind of stuff in there yet. I mean, in the context of some of the films, I would say, you know, if you think about the prequels, you know, Palpatine was definitely kind of grooming Anakin from a young age to kind of be his dark side apprentice, you know, but it's all the same kind of, I think the same kind of stuff you see with the grooming is like this person was seen as like a mentor to him. Like he grew up without a father, right? He grew up in a father. He went to a place far away from his mother where he didn't, you know, sometimes belong or fit in with this Jedi Council and this Jedi Order. He was just this kind of young kid. He was one of the few kids that were trained after a certain age. And this kind of older gentleman kind of, you know, came alongside him and told him that he was going to be the greatest Jedi and this and that, and filled his head with all kinds of, you know, emotional stuff for a kid. So not from a sexual angle, but you definitely kind of see the kind of personalities that feed off of that, and the ones that are preyed upon that, you know, may come from certain unsettled backgrounds or things where they can be easily manipulated, or see someone as a mentor figure that they trust, and that person ultimately, you know, betrays their trust and kind of turns them into something they want, because a lot of kids don't really know what they want, which is the craziest part about all this. Like, you know, when just like, you know, remember back when you were a kid, it's like, yeah, I was into a zillion different things. You know, I was into like Where's Waldo and Ninja Turtles and Mario Brothers, this and that. Like, but like my parents didn't make me just be Mario for the rest of my life because I liked it when I was 10 years old. You know, it's like kids go through phases and things, and trying to mess with kids' sexual identity at a very early age is so dangerous, especially when you talk about the pharmaceutical aspect about hormone blockers and stuff like that. It's getting to a level where it's really sad and disturbing. And I think a lot of people are starting to talk about this kind of stuff, but a lot of people are just too afraid to face the letter brigade, right? Because if you say anything bad about them, you could be canceled, or your show's done, or you something YouTube gets taken down or something. So it's like people are kind of afraid to push back, but I think all of us should kind of think, what's more important, talking about some of this stuff or not. And I think we all have different thoughts and ideas about that. But yeah, we'll see what happens coming soon in the future with what Disney wants to start putting into their programming. And I'll say one thing too, everybody kind of threw a big fit about that message a few weeks ago, how they said they're going to they want 50% of all characters to be like LGBT or whatever in Disney. Sometimes when I hear statements like that really aren't backed up by any like action on their part, it's to me, it's wondering if they're trying to gauge and get some kind of reaction out of it, and see, and you even see that in benign things in Star Wars. Several years ago, they kind of floated out the rumor that Ewan McGregor was going to come back to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And like, really, there was nothing else to it than that. And like, there was really, really good buzz about it. And sure enough, this year we're getting an Obi-Wan Kenobi Ewan McGregor series. So that's an obviously very benign situation. But I think these media companies float some of these ideas out there for one, to show that they're still woke, right? So they like, don't cancel me, bro. I'm still on your side. But then I think we'll see what happens with this specifically. But I think sometimes they don't always fully do what they say they're going to do. But people have such short-term memories that they hear, hey, Disney's going to be doing something awesome. That's great, and they kind of leave it at that. Even in the new sequel trilogy, they brought in a lot of characters that were not white people. Okay, and that's great and that's fine. But they did that kind of to show that they were about diversity, but they didn't give those characters a lot of substance. So it's like on the face, they appealed to the woke community, but in actuality, they failed because they didn't actually give those people compelling stories. And they've ended up getting their ass kicked on the back end of that by trying to be like fake woke, and kind of slide through. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll try to push some more of that stuff, but it's frustrating and it is what it is. But I hope, and it's a false hope, but that some of that stuff stays out of Star Wars going forward. But it's Disney. What can you say?
Go woke, go broke, man. And the Academy Awards, they're going to put certain requirements on on a movie is going to be eligible for getting the award, based upon their cast, the amount of LGBTQ people they have on their cast, and they have even on the people working the cameras and the microphones and the key grip and the guy getting the sandwiches, which is going to, it brings up a lot of interesting questions. For one, that makes it very difficult to run a business, so if you just look at population numbers at a baseline, it's going to make the creating a movie incredibly difficult. And it sounds very communistic, and it's like you got to fulfill these requirements and all that stuff. And furthermore, it's going to force other people that may not necessarily be comfortable with divulging information like that actually make it a condition of employment. Maybe somebody doesn't necessarily want to come out of the closet yet, even if they are. That raises a whole lot of ethical questions in terms, and then even their medical history, the medical records and things like that. Also, that it goes very much in line with the COVID narrative that they want everybody to be disclosing things that just a couple of years ago were against the law based on HIPAA laws.
Right.
And that
it's like a check the box thing, right?
Exactly.
Hey, this is the mix of our cast. it's this percentage, this race, it's this percentage, this. It's like that, so if you were someone that was, let's say like a black female going out for a role, you would maybe have to think that in the back of your mind, like, am I just being brought into this because of they have to meet this requirement? It's no different than in the NFL, right? They have that Rooney Rule where you have to interview a minority candidate, and a lot of organizations obviously abuse that because they're like, hey, listen, we'll meet it to the letter of the law, but we already know who we were going to hire, so they bring someone in for a dog and pony show, and that's actually more insulting to that person than if they never would have been interviewed at all because they knew they probably never had a chance. Because the organization already had somebody in mind. So like when it gets that check the box thing, it becomes, like you said, it's kind of with how the population is, it makes it difficult, but it's also just very inauthentic. Like I wouldn't expect a movie that takes place like in Cuba, just randomly someone like me to be one of the main characters, right? Like it's going to be people who are of Cuban origin, so it's like, I think they mash things in there that don't always necessarily make sense. One thing I'll say, were you into like The Sopranos at all?
A little bit, but not really.
So in the Sopranos series, it's the Italian mob in like North Jersey, and it took place in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of the Italians were obviously very racist against like the black people. Okay. But they made a prequel movie that took place in like the 70s. And some of that stuff wasn't present. And you would have thought that the animosity even back then, well, actually it was in the 60s. There was a lot of, racial tensions and things. And a lot of that stuff wasn't really present in the movie, which I was not advocating for. I'm not saying glorifying it, but I'm saying like it made it inauthentic because they chose not to do certain things or say certain things that really in that context, in that time frame, would have been highly likely from both sides. Very racist from both sides of the perspective. And they obviously all both have different reasonings and whatnot. That's kind of not the point. The point is that it made it a little less authentic because there wasn't this kind of tension that you thought should have been in this specific time frame in era, but it's a microcosm of when the movie was made. It was made like 2 years ago, so there were some things they probably couldn't have put in there, even if they thought it would have been more authentic, because there had been huge backlash and this and that. And a movie and a TV show, it like we've been saying, when it's tied down by all these rules, it kind of loses some of the magic in the fun, really, and the immersiveness, because you're seeing kind of the stuff. You're like, oh, I feel like they put in this person because of this. I feel like they brought in this character because of this. Like, every Netflix show, season 2, 3, 4, one of the characters is gay. It's just kind of like a joke at this point. It happens in pretty much every single series, and it kind of takes you out of it because they have to check that box, and it's really frustrating how movies are going like that.
I was just saying this the other day. Me and my girlfriend were watching a documentary on CNN, on the CNN app, which don't do it. If you don't have to, don't do it. They do actually have some great documentaries, but it's like you can't watch anything new without the central theme of it being woke. It's not. Yeah. And I actually wonder if that is an editorial decision. Like your idea cannot be brought to life unless you check these boxes.
Oh, yeah. And I was at lunch. Me and my wife went to lunch today, and they at the restaurant where they had like ESPN. And I'm like, oh, cool. I haven't really watched ESPN in a while. Kind of see what's going on. It was like a whole mini documentary about one of the basketball owners and his ties to China and all this. And it's like, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? Can't we just get back to what your core function is supposed to be? Is kind of entertaining people, giving people sports, giving people movies, giving people stuff. When you ramrod this stuff in, it just it's like Jordan said in the 90s. He's like, Republicans buy sneakers too, which is why he wasn't going too crazy into all these kind of agendas and things that people thought he should have. And like you said it earlier, go woke, go broke. They shoot themselves in the foot, and then they will, reverse course. But the damage is done on both sides. at
And
that point.
at the end of the day, does anybody actually believe that corporations believe in the rights of man? Like, no,
Right.
no, corporations don't give a shit about you. They'll do or say anything if they think they're going to make money, or if they think it's a possibility that they'll lose money. They'll do anything
Absolutely.
for that.
Yeah.
And
In social media, you'll see them Black History Month, they'll change their logo to this. Gay Pride Month, they'll change their logo to this.
yeah,
Ukraine situation, they'll change their flag to Ukraine. They will just go on with whatever is the it's like
Current
the whole
thing.
joke. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I support the most current thing, and like you said, it's so inauthentic and shady, because they really don't. All they care about is the dollar. All they care about is the dollar and whatever they can push to get them there. But I feel like they've jumped on these bandwagons, which may not actually be profitable,
Yeah. Yep. So, and this will be the last question I ask that has nothing to do with Star Wars, because I brought you on to talk about, I have so many questions about the book, and then, because I love talking to you, that we just went with this, where it goes, whatever. Have you seen Red Panda on, Turning Red?
No, I have not.
My God, bro. Okay, watch
Is it some allegory for something weird?
Oh, it's an allegory, all right. It's a metaphor par excellence. Okay, don't watch it with your kids. It's about, but watch it. It's
Is it about like the menstrual cycle, or like having a period or something?
It is. But
Oh
here's
my
the thing.
God.
Here's the thing: is that it's a movie made for preteen girls, which I understand. You at least want to be able to, if I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, you know what I'm saying? And even like I was saying, my girlfriend, we were both watching it with my niece and my son. I had no idea what it was about, but when it started going, I was like, oh, okay, be careful here, guys. Be careful here, guys. And okay, so Turning Red. What it is that this girl, it runs in her family. There's some kind of magical powers that she turns into a large red panda once a month, destroys everything, doesn't exactly know what's going on, all this stuff. Okay, fine. If you're just trying to tell girls like, hey, this is normal, everybody goes through this, you're going to have to learn how to deal with it and do it with
Right,
grace.
just like a metaphor, yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. If you were going to leave it there, cool. But here's what happens, is that her and her friends want to go to a concert really, really bad. This boy band, who actually, like, their music in the movie, I'm like, all right, this music isn't half bad. It's pretty good. But they really want to go see it. So what they do is they start charging children to see this girl's panda. Okay? And red, when her panda turns red, that's when it's that time of the month. And so...
Wow.
Yes. And so there comes this time when one of the people in school ask her if he will show her, if she will show her panda at his party for $100. And that's the last leg they need to get to be able to afford the 4 tickets. And the whole crux of the movie, like, even if you gave this movie every single benefit of the doubt, this girl's mother comes in and catches her at this moment where she jumped off of a roof as the panda and landed on the boy because he was making her very, very angry. Don't make the panda angry. Jumps on top of him and is straddling him like cowgirl style. And as the mother comes in and catches her, and the mother knows that, it runs in the family, the panda thing. And so the whole thing is that she's not supposed to show her panda. Straddling him. So it's very incredibly suggestive. And it's like, if at that point that's the last, I don't know, that's the last plausible deniability of this is what the movie is about, prostituting yourself. And then at the end, what happens is the whole family figures out that, hey, showing your panda in public for money is actually not a bad thing. You should be proud of it. So it goes like this whole extra, like you start here, which is just like uncomfortable, but I understand what you're doing, to totally uncomfortable, and this is outrageously ridiculous. And then you get the whole family in on it. And on the creator side, Disney made this so that it was written entirely by women, mostly by women of color. And can you imagine a room full of women signing off on this? Like, it is mind-boggling to me. And then a part of me goes, no. I highly doubt it was written by women, because at least one or two of them would have been like, yo, this is way too far. We can't be exposing children to this kind of a message. It makes me think it was written by a bunch of old white men, and they're like,
Right.
oh, you get it so that the mother catches her straddling them at the party. That's really what we're going to go for.
Wow. It's almost unbelievable when you break it down like that.
Right.
Like some of like those Pixar stuff, like there are some suggestive themes, but like it's some things that like maybe you catch as like a parent that like maybe would obviously go over the kid's head, and like some things like little themes throughout those. But like this is like the most blatant that I've heard. I mean, heard in a while. I mean, between that one and the the Monsters Inc. one, those are both pretty wild when you break it down to what they're actually trying to convey. But man, I didn't realize it really went in that direction, man. Like you said, like one or two things could have been like, okay, just a kind of a fine metaphor or something, but like they really went for it. Like you could like change the color or change like the time period or something, like, but like it was very like, it sounds like very on the nose.
Yeah. I really like it like visually, just like all these movies, it's incredible visually. You know what I mean? She turns into a panda. You can see every little hair on the panda. You know what I mean? Like, so the quality of it is really, really good. The music is really, really good. So it's like they're drawing people in with all these like really good qualities of the movie. And as far as like writing goes, the writing is actually pretty good, so to convey that kind of a message, and it cannot be anything than 100% on purpose. That's basically what I'm saying.
Wow.
Yeah. So Star Wars. One thing that I really loved about the audiobook in particular was your little asides. One in particular that stuck out to me was you were talking about, I think, the Clinton Foundation, and it's just like you come out, and I really like how you differentiate it from the rest of the book. You put that little megaphone effect on your voice. And and you say something along the lines of like, just letting everybody know I love my life, I love my wife, I have no intentions on killing myself. Genius, right there. But I mean, as far as like from a content creator standpoint, it was just a very great way. Like you found these very creative ways to break up the book to make it entertaining and to differentiate certain parts, just so that there's not only no confusion, but aesthetically, it's really pleasing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of, all this kind of stuff we're talking about. It's important to break it up with little bits of comedy and little jokes here and there, because especially with some of the music in some of the chapters, it can get very ominous, it can get very dark, and like I kind of want to just break it up a little bit. Not like I'm like bringing in like clown music or something, right? But just like we just throw in a little thing here, just as a little quick joke, because I think like we talked about earlier, some of these things about the Clints especially is like really incredibly dark. And the darkest thing is that they're never going to be caught for anything they've ever done with the Clinton Foundation, things in Haiti and all other kinds of things we don't even really need to get into, but we all know bits and pieces about all this stuff. But like it's just it was it's one of those running jokes, right? Like anytime you say anything bad about the Clintons, you gotta be like, hey, listen, like I love my family, I love everything. These people are great people. I wish them no harm. Hillary is just the greatest. So it's just kind of one of those little running gags I wanted to throw in there, because I've heard it from a few other folks and podcasts and things. And like it's a really good little joke, because it's like at the same time, no, seriously, like for real. Like, obviously my book is very, very, small, so I don't think they'll, know about this kind of thing. But it's like you just want to throw that disclaimer out there, just because, hey, listen, we're good. We're good. I love them. I love them so much.
Yeah, man. And I really love that you focused on the prequels, because as far as relating it to conspiracy or history, real life, all that stuff, it's the deepest of the 9 movies. It's really, and I really loved that you concentrated on the Clone Wars animated TV series. I just started it. I've put it off for years, and I have no idea why, because it's freaking amazing.
It's incredible, yeah.
The animation is good, the story's great, and so you relate that there's some of these series, and I think it's in a couple episodes in Clone Wars, and then the series what is it, the Bad Squad, the Bad Team?
Oh, the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch. So there's this whole so in the clones, they're embedded with a chip, and can you relate some of it? Because I don't want to really hack it up, but it's great the way that this dovetails into the COVID narrative stuff.
Yeah, these clones, where the whole history of how these clones came to be is really wild, and and convoluted. It was kind of like intended to be to help out the Jedi and the Republic, but it was basically co-opted by evil forces. So this clone army that the Republic starts using had been implanted with these microchips, many years before they went into use, and only a few select people kind of knew about this chip. And what this chip was it would at saying a specific phrase would cause the clones to do something. It's very like MK Ultra, Manchurian Candidate type stuff. When you boil it down theoretically. So at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine says, "Execute Order 66." Boom, all the clones. It goes off in their brain. Hey, we need to kill the Jedi. Like definitely some serious mind control programming parallels there. And they obviously they do their job. But during the Clone Wars series, which takes place right before that movie, there were some kind of close calls where some clones almost kind of blew it. One of the clones in the midst of a battle went up and just killed one of the Jedi generals that he was working for. And like, it was crazy to see because, this was back in, when the Clone Wars first aired, it was on, Cartoon Network. And, some of the episodes of the show, it was kind of really dark. I'm interested to hear, Jay, once you get through it, we'll have to chat more because there was some kind of dark stuff for a kid's show in there. But, George Lucas didn't want to shy away from violence or like kind of things like that. He didn't want to water it down. So this one clone just went up and killed one of the Jedi. Basically, the microchip malfunctioned, and they had to try to figure out what happened. And at the end of the day, what they did was they trying to think if this is the one. Yeah. So what they did at the end of the day was that clone ended up dying. Another clone tried to figure it out. This other clone was like deep in into the conspiracy of what was going on. He's like, listen, like my brother in arms here had some crazy things happen. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And it even got up to Palpatine, but Palpatine ended up squashing it. He basically told the Jedi, like, listen, there was something wrong with the clones' programming, and we have to give them like like inoculation, like a vaccine to kind of, purge out this, whatever was wrong with it, was wrong with these clones, all the ones that were in close contact with this guy, because they floated the theory that, well, maybe the opposing forces were using some biological warfare on the clones and he got a bad dose of something or what have you. So at the end of the day, Palpatine was able to kind of, wish it all away. But, they had this microchip within them their whole lives. And then at a certain point, it activated and caused some massive issue. Now, we know we've kind of talked about this from the whole COVID inoculation, right? Does that have something more shady, more sinister within it than we even know about? Maybe. I know I've been seeing some kind of wild theories recently. I've even seen the stuff about like the venom or what have you. I didn't dig too much into that. Do you know much about what that's all about?
I've heard about it. It's in my bucket of possibilities. There's a million possibilities in that bucket. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to speak on it very much. But are you talking like black goo type stuff?
No, they said something about something was an anti-venom to the antibodies would be like somewhat an anti-venom to whatever was in your system or what have you. So yeah, so it's kind of, there's a whole lot of different thoughts and opinions on that. One possible scenario could be that it's just all just a red herring. It was all just kind of a control test to see how we functioned. All of us hamsters in our hamster wheel. Did we do the right thing? And I think the overwhelming majority. Well, I wouldn't say the overwhelming majority. A lot of people played ball. And now the powers that be know what buttons to press, to trigger people to do something or to not do something, or to do things against their own self-interest, like locking themselves in their house and not going to work and not going to the store and not, seeing their kids or not being able to see their parents in the hospital. Like, so they, in one aspect of it, it could have been, what the inoculation was something very dangerous. And I think there have been a lot of bad effects that obviously we aren't allowed to talk about or vocalize, or you'll get banned or censored. But I mean, 20 something soccer players in Europe are just falling over all over the place, like with unexplained reasons. And, every other day you hear about somebody dying. Oh, they died of a short illness. Like what was it? What was it? Tell us what happened, but it's like they're kind of egging you on to make that comment or post about, oh, it was definitely this. So like, then you'll look like the crazy person. So it's wild. I think it could go one of two ways. I think there could be something really, really dangerous. It could have also been, like I said, a red herring placebo kind of test to see how people would react and how people would fall in line with what they were being told to do. And I think a lot of people did fall in line with what they're being told to do for a certain extent.
And I think part of it, and of course with these things, there's always a million narratives. I mean, there's always a ton of agendas going on that they're trying to, you don't do any of these things for one reason. You do them for 5 to 20. And I think one of them was, now we've got our list of people. Now we know who we have to go round up in 2027. And it goes on to that, the NSA lists, and, it's a new box that they can check in their dossiers that they have on every citizen in the United States, all this other stuff. But we are coming up against our time. Kyle, that passed way too quickly. I'm going to have you on again.
Yes, for sure.
And I just want to congratulate you on the book. Wanted to tell you in person that it is one of the best reads of 2022. And I wish you the best and all of the success. Where can everybody find your book?
Sure. So like we said, it's called Intergalactic Totalitarianism. Great forward by Charlie Robinson, who I'm sure you've had on before. Really great guy. I really appreciated all his insight in writing the forward for the book. So you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on paperback. You can find it on Kindle. You can find it on Amazon through Audible. And I will say for anybody that's listening and is interested, I do have a bunch of promo codes for free downloads of it. So if you want to reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram at conspiracy_Kyle, conspiracy with the K, I can get you a code to download that free audiobook. I really want to just really kind of get the word out about this stuff. I think it's important, like we talked about earlier, to kind of make these analogies and parallels between pop culture and really deeper things going on. And like I've always tried to use Star Wars as that kind of jumping off point. Sometimes I look back at old podcast episodes and some of those parallels were not very successful. With different mindsets and different things that I believed at the time. But it's a great thing that a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people know about Star Wars. Not a lot of people know about all the kind of stuff that we talk about. So I kind of think it could work two ways. It could kind of get people to start going down the rabbit hole and think a little bit, or kind of start to think about those prequel movies in a different way as well. Because, I think a lot of people have, terrible ideas about what the prequels really were. Like, oh, Jar Jar Binks, he sucked and this and that. But like, there's kind of a really deep cautionary tale that Lucas was trying to tell in there that is applicable to modern day events. So I definitely would encourage everybody to kind of, take a look back at those movies if you haven't in a while. I think, if you can get past some of the corny dialogue and some of the terrible green screen stuff that is kind of inherently through it, you'll kind of get to the underlying message he was trying to say, which is, don't trust the government because they're not your friend, even if they say they are. So thank you so much for having on. I definitely appreciate everybody who's bought the book, is giving great feedback. Jay, you gave me some really great feedback. You've been very supportive of this. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, my friend.
100%, Kyle. Thanks a lot for coming on, dude.
Absolutely.